Why are Michigan jails so crowded when crime is going down? Michigan Supreme Court Chief Justice Bridget McCormick and Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist are here with answers. And defending the environment. New chemicals and costly cleanups have people worried from Sanilac County to downtown Detroit. Today is Sunday, January 26, 2020, and this is Flashpoint. All right, welcome to Flashpoint. It has been, of course, a historic week for the nation with the impeachment trial of President Trump underway in the Senate. We're going to set that aside this morning. Not to worry, there will be plenty of conversation about that on other Sunday morning programs today. But here at Flashpoint, we're going to keep our eye on two other critical topics this morning. One of them, the environmental worries that have been a near plague on our communities over this very young new year. If you're with us every week, you already know we've devoted a lot of time to the green ooze on I-696 and the dock collapse on the Detroit River. They're just two of the thousands of worries on the radar of the Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. These matters have also become the full-time jobs of two of our reporters here at Local 4. And a little later this morning, we're going to talk with Karen Drew and Hank Winchester about what has them most worried, despite state assurances that things are under control. We're going to start, though, with what many Michigan leaders describe as an absolute and necessary priority for our state. Right now, there are nearly 3 times as many people in Michigan jails as there were 40 years ago. It is extremely expensive, but worse, it seems it is a vastly ineffective and often unfair system. A task force was put together to come up with answers for this deeply vexing dilemma. Suggestions are now in. Are they practical? Do they put anyone at risk on either side of the bars? The co-chairs of the task force are the state's Chief Supreme Court Justice Bridget McCormick and our Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist. They're both here, and they're up first this morning on Flashpoint. You know, it really doesn't seem to make much sense. Crime rates are down. In fact, arrests are down more than 20% over the last 10 years. We have a new and growing understanding of mental illness and its relation to crime, and yet our jails continue to overflow. Something is quite wrong, and even in a state with crumbling roads and infrastructure, Speaker of the Michigan House Lee Chatfield calls criminal justice reform his #1 priority. He put together a task force to look for solutions, and they have now delivered 18 of them, and the two leaders of that task force are with us this morning, the Chief Justice of the Michigan Supreme Court, Bridget McCormick, and our Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist. Thank you both very much for coming. Justice McCormick, I want to start with you because I'm curious, before we get into the nuts and bolts of what you did, this is an interesting position for a Supreme Court Justice to be put into. This is an activist role. Is this comfortable for you?
Let me push back a little. I don't think it's an activist role. The task force was charged with figuring out with data what's going on. Why are our jail populations where they are? Why have those populations grown 3 times in the last 3 decades when our crime is at a 50-year low? And we didn't have statewide data on that before. And then based on that data, with a really diverse group of stakeholders around the table, make recommendations that then the policy branches of government will figure out which of those or how among those they will want to implement them. Okay. So I viewed this more as a leadership role in gathering the data and being able to make evidence-based and values-based recommendations.
Okay, and you've come up with 18 of those, and now you're right. Now the hard part becomes what can everybody agree on. But Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, if you could, what was the most eye-popping finding for you as you started to dig into this problem?
Well, I mean, having the information matters. So we have 83 counties, 81 county jail systems, and all of those data systems with those jails don't talk to each other. But through this process, we now have a clear sense of who's in jail, why, and for how long. And one of the most striking things that came up was that almost half of the people who are in county jail today are there because of suspended driver's licenses or not paying fines related to suspended driver's license. It's the #1 driver of our jail population, no pun intended. And so that's one of the reasons why the first recommendation in the set of 18 is changing the way that we're treating driver's license suspensions, limiting the reasons why we will take someone's driver's license away. So we're trying to have these recommendations be things that will make an impact, that will have an immediate impact on not only people who are in jail, but also the communities in which they live.
And once somebody loses their driver's license, their ability then to, the other problems it creates, their ability to get out of it by, say, working to be able to afford whatever it is shot.
It's hard in Michigan, as you know.
Yeah.
Most people get to work with cars, and if we're
not our reliable mass transit.
Well,
I understand.
I think that's a different show. But and no one put me on that task force yet. So, but if we are suspending people's driver's licenses because they haven't been able to pay fines and fees related to some offense that has nothing to do with driving safety, it's not clearly going to make our it's certainly not going to make our community safer, and it's hardly going to make them more able to pay those fines and fees that they owe in the first place. If you can't get to work with your car, how are you going to pay what you owe?
Well, what you're, I guess, at a certain point going to run up against with most of your recommendations is that there is a general sense among a lot of people that good people don't get in trouble, that people who find themselves in jail have kind of done something to deserve their way there, and that the best way for us to move forward is people to behave.
Well, part of this is that, people make mistakes, and our system needs to be one where you allow someone to rehabilitate from that mistake or atone for that mistake. But we are just punishing people and punishing them too much. So one of the sets of recommendations has to do with how we're classifying different types of offenses. I mean, our population has gone up, but the crime has gone down. That means that people are committing less crime. So we have to understand then, why are they being put in jail anyway? And these reforms, these recommendations are seeking to change that trend. Do we invest in communities? Can we invest in mental and behavioral health? Because a significant portion of people who are in county jail need those services. Can we make investments in victim services so that we can really protect public safety in the broadest sense? That's what we're trying to do.
I think you found, and I wanted to get to mental health, I think you found that somewhere between a fourth and a third of the people who are in jails have them. I'm actually shocked that it's that low. It feels higher.
Well, to be clear, they have serious mental health.
Yeah, I think most of the sheriffs would put the number far higher for any mental health conditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do we do then in a state that many people believe has decimated its own mental health care, way to address mental health care systems? We have, and I've talked this over with a number of sheriffs and police chiefs before, we got a lot of families hoping their loved one gets arrested because they believe that that's the only place they can get some mental health help.
Yeah, and as you know, it's once they're in the jail, at least they're maybe protected from whatever harm they may have been doing to themselves before they were in the jail, but it's hard. It's not usually a place where people get better, right? I mean, jail might be a place for temporary safety. It's not a place where people get better. In fact, there's a lot of data to suggest it's a place where people get worse. And in the meantime, they're not necessarily perfectly safe in the jail, and the sheriffs and the sheriff's deputies are not safe either, having to be the ones in charge of that. We have made the sheriffs and their deputies the frontline mental health workers in our communities, and that's not what they were trained for. It's not what they signed up for, and it's not fair to them.
Then this is one of those areas now where it's going to be difficult to coalesce agreement over how now the state moves ahead and addresses this shortfall.
I don't know.
It's a great recommendation.
I would disagree with that slightly. I mean, criminal justice reform has been the largest area of bipartisan consensus in Michigan since we took office. The Speaker of the House, as you indicated, has said that this is his #1 priority. And we passed criminal justice reform. We raised the age so that 17-year-olds wouldn't be treated as adults. We passed reforms to parole medically frail individuals. I mean, we've changed the civil asset forfeiture laws. We want to build on that momentum. And our task force was diverse. It was bipartisan. We had Republican and Democratic legislators. We had judges. We had prosecutors. We had county sheriffs. We had people who work in and administer jails. We had victims' rights advocates. We had survivors of crime. We had people who had been formerly incarcerated themselves directly. This diverse group of people reached consensus that these recommendations were the 18 best ways to improve the system.
Yeah.
That's a bipartisan consensus, and we should build on the momentum that we started in 2019 to make these reforms real in 2020.
Yeah.
Mental health services can be expensive. I'm sure that's right.
No doubt about it.
But jails are expensive too. And if they're not making us safer,
Yes.
throwing more money at them is not necessarily a good way to spend government money. The Speaker was asked a pointed question about this at the press conference last week, and he said, "We fund our values." And if mental health services is going to make our community safer and is going to be a more humane way to treat people with mental illness, I trust my government to take care of it.
This will test our values. Another interesting thing is, generally in America, it stinks to be poor. When you're in trouble and you're headed to jail, poverty becomes has a different kind of influence on your ability to pay bond yourself out, on your ability to afford representation. What did you find?
Well, we found that in Michigan, about 50% of the people in our jails are there because they can't pay a bond and so they're pretrial. They have not yet been convicted of anything. They are presumed innocent. Of course, it is the case that some of those folks pose a threat to public safety, and judges have to retain the discretion to make sure the community is safe when someone does pose that kind of threat. But for people who literally can't pay a $200 bond or a $100 bond on a driving offense, it is
to
not.
Spend time in jail for that seems onerous.
It may be onerous to them, and also not clearly better for any of the rest of us. You might want them out going to work, paying taxes, paying child support, paying the things that make them a contributor to our society. So it's not clearly a better system for anybody.
The first 20, you also spent a lot of time talking about the first 24 hours after an arrest. Why is that critical?
Well, part of that is because when we looked at the data, and we found this data, I want to give a shout out to the Pew Charitable Trust, who are a tremendous partner in this year-long exercise with data collection and analysis alongside the task force. We found that so many jail admissions are for very, very, very short jail stays. And again, with the significant part of the jail population being their pre-trial, we want to give people a right to have a speedy trial and to really push the system to ensure that they can be in front of a judge, that they can have their charges actually heard and argued quickly, because being in jail is disruptive to the community. It's disruptive to the individual person who may be in jail, but it's disruptive to the community as well. It's disruptive to workplaces. It is disruptive to families. And so we need to make sure that we're handling that judiciously, quickly, so that life can go on, that communities can heal, and then we can just be better.
And similarly, that's the same reasoning that goes into the way that you want to reform, or suggesting that we reform probation and parole.
Yeah, same idea. I mean, people on probation and parole are also showing up in our jails in numbers that seem worth our paying some attention to, especially when the violations are technical things. They didn't call in on time, or they didn't. They showed up a day late. It's not clearly making anybody safer to put that person back in jail for a technical violation instead of some other kind of intervention that would allow them to keep contributing.
The last thing I wanted to let you both address, and this is bigger than just the jail part, this is the whole correction system, and that is we seem to be very unable to decide what we want it all to be. Is it supposed to be a place where we just can separate bad people from good people and sort of warehouse people? Or is it supposed to be a rehabilitator that changes people and gives them a chance to come back? Because I think some people would argue that we don't do either one of those things. We're this sort of weird amalgamation of this big corporate system, the industrial prison complex, that really doesn't serve society in either way.
Sure. I think that we need to use all of the tools of our system of justice to protect and increase and encourage public safety. The way that our county jail systems are working right now are not doing that. Resources are being diverted to county jails and instead of mental and behavioral health services and substance abuse systems. We are locking people up because they don't have money rather than because they did something wrong. But if we change this system in the ways that we've suggested, we'll put Michigan on a path to actually having a system that protects public safety, that helps people get the resources and the support and the help that they need to be successful, but it also helps communities be stronger, more vibrant, and safer.
First of all, come to first year criminal law. This is what we talk about for an entire week. What is the purpose of punishment? Yeah. And I think the answer is all of the above, but I think you're correct that we're not necessarily nailing any of those, right? If the criminal justice system has the ability to rehabilitate someone so they don't commit a future crime, that makes our community safer. And it also is consistent with our values. Yeah. There are no throwaway people, my friend, former Speaker Craig DeRoche likes to say, and that's who we are. And so diversion works, deflection works. If we can make people safer, our communities safer by rehabilitating people, we should do it.
It's a massive issue, and I appreciate the work you've done, and I also really appreciate both of you being here to talk about it this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
We come back, we're going to talk about the environmental problems that have been plaguing Michigan. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.